Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to our next instalment of our Avada Associate Featured Artist in Conversation. So we've been really grateful to Sayell to be our current featured artist. So you might have already seen her blog post on the Avada website or some of the brilliant posts she's been making on the OAFA Instagram. So today we've got her in conversation with our previous OAFA, Rhiannon Evans. So thank you very much to them both for joining us. We are going to hand over them just in a sec to have their conversation and unpack some of the things that they've been that has been on the blog and on Instagram, and then there'll be some time for questions at the end. So I will put myself on mute and take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Hello, Rhiannon.
Hi. Just for the benefit of anybody who will be watching this later who doesn't know your practice, could you just give a little bit of an introduction to what you do and the various media that you use to do it?
Okay. So, I did art foundation, art degree, MA around Britain. I started showing an interest in photography from a really early age because my dad had a dark room in the bathroom. So in terms of kind of traditional wet photography, I helped develop prints from a very early age and was very fascinated by watching that image kind of appear in the and that's always been with me as a kind of quite an easy kind of familiar medium. I have always enjoyed drawing, and I did a lot more of that at kind of earlier stages of my kind of career. But by the time I got to degree level, it was kind of almost sort of shunned on really to do anything figurative or kind of landscapey. I think it was in the 90s, it was a time when we all were very encouraged to be very conceptual. So I kind of very easily slipped more back into photography. And then of course digital came along, so I have done digital pieces as well. And I feel quite lucky really that I've been able to flip or blend the two together in terms of digital photography and not just traditional kind of darkroom photography, but also experimental methods as well. So I did a lot of pinhole, and then in the noughties, 2000, I started doing cyanotypes as well. So through education, through teaching, I've always had opportunities to interact with other kind of academics and use the facilities that a college or university would offer. So but drawing, as you'll see, has become something that has fallen back into more of a priority in my work, and that's particularly to do with lockdown, but I know we're going to talk about that in a bit. But principally I've done quite a lot of moving image, experimental film and video and photography, and drawing has always been there but has become something I'm really exploring at the moment.
Right, yeah, I just wanted people to know that, because people, well, I automatically think of you as an experimental photographer first.
Yeah,
there's a lot more to practice. I mean, a lot of your work, the natural world is really, really important. I don't know whether you feel that way. I think you do. And can you explain how that is and how you work with it, and if you've got any images to share, that would be.
Yeah, I will. So I mean, I grew up always on the edge of sort of countryside. So actually, again, going to do my degree at Nottingham, I found quite difficult because it was a very kind of loud sort of city environment. So I found that quite difficult. I'm always seeking out the edges of countryside or actual kind of, places of more sort of beauty. Most of my work that you'll see is to do with the outdoors and exploring also concepts of things like the picturesque and the sublime, which are kind of key themes running through exploring landscape. Trying to avoid just making pure kind of picturesque images for the sake of it, and trying to kind of tackle that, you know, what is the picturesque and why is it a difficult subject to explore, and also looking at kind of stereotypical landscapes of say Wales, or stereotypical kind of places that are touristic and popular to visit. So
have you got any examples?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could show us, I don't know where they are in the PowerPoint, whether they fit in at the beginning or.
Yeah, they do. Here we go. Just find my screen. Right, I'm going to go to my very, very messy desktop. Hang on.
Okay.
Just press play, do we? So I'm going to go
The top.
bigger. There we go. Okay, so this is an image which is part of one of 4, which I did for an exhibition association with the University of Reading. So I've kind of people know that work there. So I was asked to do a series of 4 images at the with the university, and the exhibition was about an artist called Charles Tunnicliffe, and he did beautiful hand-drawn illustrations for many Ladybird books, and so I was asked to respond to him and Ladybird books. So immediately I knew that the ones I would want to go and see in the archive. Is it not working?
I haven't been granted access.
Oh, I don't know if you can hear that, Lisa. My partner's trying to get in the box. Right, we're waiting for the host. I don't know if you can. Right, okay. So so Charles Tunnicliffe and Ladybird books. I knew immediately from the archive of the original drawings I would want to see that. So anyway, this is the image obviously for winter. This is very local to where I live. So my remit was to explore within walking distance the countryside, which where I live in North Oxfordshire is very kind of farming based. And this is a pinhole. It was the only pinhole I did for that series. The other ones were kind of digital blended images. And the other thing about my work is framing. So I like to kind of look at the countryside, try and see it on a back foot, if you see what I mean, rather than just go for the kind of picturesque. But it's quite a bleak
Can you
picture.
explain what you mean by go for it on the back foot?
Well, try and find images that have some kind of resonance. I'm sorry.
Can I listen or not?
Is it done? I'm on screen share at the moment. So so I'm trying to find pictures that have kind of some kind of resonance, that might have reference to something that's going on in the picture. So here you can see the hedgerows are quite depleted. They're quite thin and not very kind of well maintained. So although it's quite a stark, gritty kind of picture of winter, which is what I wanted, in some ways it is quite a beautiful mist and the dead oak tree, I wanted it to look not so kind of all is well.
which really comes through in the photo. One thing that I just want to ask you about your pinhole photography, and not to dwell too much on that, because I know you've got aspect to practice, but what particular characteristics of pinhole fit with your work? So when you say you want to show things on the back foot, how does experimental photography and pinhole photography enable you to do those things and to explore the picturesque in particular? Those techniques.
Well, first of all, if you've ever tried pinhole, you might know that it's quite tricky and it can be very unpredictable. And I like using that process outdoors in the sense that it's a bit like maybe painting on a canvas outdoors or something. It's quite unpredictable. You don't know how it's going to work. The weather can change. So there's quite a lot of unknown factors with pinhole when you go outside. This is from a 5:4 5x4" negative. So you can see it's got little notch kinks in the bottom of the image.
Yeah.
So I've kept all of the outside of the negative. So as you look through the frame, you can see the frame is there. That's the original shape from the pinhole dark slide that I used. So that's another aspect of my work, which runs through the pinhole, but also comes through some cyanotypes that I did. So I'll just show you that.
Yeah.
Oh, if I press it. Oh, it doesn't like that. Oh, okay. There we go. I click on it.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Okay, so so again, these were cyanotypes that go back previous to that exhibition, and these were shown at a media festival in Essex, and I did about 8 of them. And those rectangles you can see is just under A3. These are quite large. Panelled, constructed.
Styles then
they're stuck together, yeah, but each one was printed individually.
Yeah.
So from originally, that's a 35mm negative that I then scanned at high res and then blew up that 35mm negative into what looks like 16 pieces, and then each roughly A3. So that's just to give you an idea of the scale. And again, this was another kind of call to action piece exhibition, where I found another quote from a Victorian photographer who was a picturesque kind of photographer, and his call was to other photographers to capture images of surrounding countryside from towns and cities which were at risk. So we talk about losing land now to development and to building or whatever, but this has been an ongoing kind of anxiety for many, many years, if you think about the becoming of the railways. So the picturesque is quite a key thing in the Victorian times. He also gave you a list of picturesque subjects that you could go and look for. So this was something like old cottages. So it is an old cottage, but it's more of a kind of tin cottage. So I was trying to find...
It's a sort of prefab, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not, as you say, it's not what you think of being the standard picturesque cottage. It's utilitarian and in a state of dilapidation.
Disrepair, but also possibly quite loved as well. I mean, there's kind of cleaning products in the window. And it almost looks like a retreat.
Yeah, not neglected.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And then other factors you can see within the panelling is the telegraph pole. So I would never delete things like that.
Sorry to interrupt you, Wig. I'm just trying to get to the essence of what it is about the experimental that helps you. Is it that unpredictability of it that you like, and the variation and the fact that you're slightly out of control?
Yes, I mean, some places are very specific that I think I might go to. These were literally kind of rambles in the countryside, and at that time I only had a shopper bike, so I had to go on my bike for most of these or get a lift with someone.
So it fits with that sort of random chance acquisition of the place, really, of your position in the place. So I had, obviously sketchbooks where I was looking at maps, lots of mapping in my work, to kind of roughly work out areas that I think would be of interest on the outskirts of Southend in Essex. The panelling is really important, and that the rough framing, again, similar to the pinhole, but I always want people to remember that they are looking at a constructed image. Right. Yeah.
So I've got one more from here.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. I particularly like this one. This was, I think it was called Rustic Workers.
Rustics at Work.
Rustics at Work. That's right. Yeah, this was the category, Rustics at Work.
Yeah.
So I took 2 under that category. I did one at the Essex County Fair, which was slightly out of the challenge to find areas within 8 miles or whatever of home, which was what the Victorian photographer asked you to do. But I thought, as it's a county fair, I can kind of allow for that. But this was literally down the road from where I lived in Southend.
Now, Yeah, I could be wrong here, but I mean, presumably because of the topic that you were working towards, I haven't actually seen many people in your work. I've just realised that most of your work that I've seen
empty. Yeah,
is empty, or birds or animals or whatever. But there's a person, and that's
that's a good observation. I mean, sometimes with my earlier pinhole work, because the exposures are so long, say 15 minutes, even if there were people in there, they would be a misty blur, or they might not be there at all. But you're right, I've often wanted to really focus on the landscape itself and look at the things that we place in the landscape. So whether it's the hospital in the background, or the sheds, the hotbeds in there and stuff. So whatever I photograph, it might be a ruin or a particular viewpoint. It's about what we leave behind. That the presence of the human is there, but just very rarely is the person. Because I think when we just concentrate too much on that particular person and what they're wearing, or
that fits very much, doesn't it, with that sort of ghostly residue that you get left in a pinhole camera, even if there was somebody. And because of the way that this has got the variations in tonal quality across the whole image,
I like that,
and the sequencing, the different parts of it, it does lend. It's got that sort of increased temporal quality rather than a single photograph being in one time. That doesn't happen with these works at all.
It is forcing you to look, hopefully, at each section, and as you go across each section, each panel, you'll start to notice certain features which I will have lined up some thought to add to it. And also with this series in it was called A Modern Picturesque, this series in Essex, I also quite religiously looked at the rules of thirds, which for a pinhole photographer is virtually impossible to do, because you can never see what your image is until you've taken it. But with these taken through a 35mm film camera, obviously, for a change, I had a viewfinder, so I could sort of try and see how things might intersect along the thirds in the photograph. So again, that's a very picturesque, a very controlled way of working. So this very much had parameters to work through. With the category, the location.
That way of being really controlled and all these set parameters, but also having the chance factors and experimentation. It's nice combination. So with going back to nature photography, nature work, nature references, we talked a little bit when we had our chat the other day about Laura Cannell's work and birds, and you said that you've been doing a lot more looking at birds. In fact, you explained that you'd been very keen on birds when you were a child, which I found fascinating. So talk a little bit more about birds in your work.
Let me just see what my next picture is, because
it might not be birds.
No, it's not. It will be in a bit. I think basically I'll stick on this slide for now, but basically, as I said, growing up on the edge of countryside, I don't know why, I became really fascinated with birds. He gave me a bird book about aged 8, something like that, and there was just that fascination with learning names and recognising different birds, and then later going out with naturalists to learn birdsong, and spending quite a long time actually. I'm listening to records as well of birdsong.
Yes, I know you said when we spoke that you can recognise
all garden birds and
birds by the range. So often when I'm in my garden, I'm thinking, what is that one? But you've started to do. Was it during lockdown that you started to do more drawings of birds?
The first thing that happened were really these. They're nothing particularly amazing, but during lockdown, we could go out a little bit, but I started to just look at what things I had in the house already around me that I could draw. So because I teach art, or I have just quite a lot of natural objects around anyway. I think all of these things really were already at home. So mussel shells and pine cones and feathers and things. Yeah. So I just got quite restless really and wanted to do something in colour, because most of my pinhole work has almost always been in black and white. And I really needed a change. I really needed to, I wanted to just hold things and look at things. And I think a lot of people felt that way during lockdown, that it was an opportunity to see things a bit differently, feel things differently.
Yeah, I think we chatted about that, didn't we? About the importance of colour suddenly in work. Yeah, and how that changed maybe from previous practice where it wasn't actually a consideration. It might happen, but it wasn't a consideration, and then suddenly it was.
Yeah, and also I think because I went out for walks a lot with my younger son, and because we couldn't go anywhere else apart from the supermarket, there was that constant urge to sort of go out and find something to take home. It was almost like stealing, but it was.
I did the same with feathers.
We picked up feathers, sticks, anything, just because you had that control of seeing something you liked, picking it up and then maybe drawing it or just exploring it. And actually now we've carried that on, because there's a field that's just been ploughed up right at the house, and we've been finding clay bits of old pipe and rusty dog collar tags and anything, and also just we started to explore the stones around here, because it's North Oxfordshire. We've got ironstone and actual almost like lumps of iron in the picked up. We didn't know what it was. It was almost like a meteorite or something, but it wasn't, but it was very metally. Yeah. So we started to look at the geology of the area around here, and I have got kind of big envelopes full of pottery and possibly medieval pottery bits that have been kind of dug up by developments along the lane and stuff. So there's something going on there which is kind of bubbling.
Your next stage then, do you think?
It could be. I know a lot of artists do retrieve things, but we'll see how it goes. So I find it difficult working.
Could we see some more bird works, please?
Want to see some bird works? Right, yeah. Let me see if they are. I think they might be a bit further on.
Okay. Well, if we,
I think that's my kind of some of my who I am, really, the essence of who I am in terms of really needing to be near nature.
Right.
So
yeah.
Oh, I have to click.
So this is.
So this is where I started to have a go, literally having a go, blending photography with my drawing. So I'm going to show you some stills in a minute of a film that I made about a mountain in Wales called Cadair Idris, which is just on the edge of Snowdonia.
Yeah, I know it well.
You do? Okay, so it's a really literally legendary mountain.
Yeah. I've been up it. Yeah.
I haven't actually been right up it. With all my kit and all my gear, I've made it to the foot of the mountain where the lake is.
Yeah.
And but however, they say that if you can get to the top of the mountain and stay there the night, 3 things will either happen. And actually, this can be said for other places in Wales. But anyway, you can either go mad, become a poet, or oh heavens, what's the other one?
You go mad. You become a poet.
I'm sure there's another one. So it's a very pointy mountain.
You get a vision.
Don't know. So it's quite a legendary mountain. So I've got a video piece that I made there. But working for this exhibition at a residency place that I go to sometimes in Corris in North Wales, they asked me if I would send in some work, so I just put in some experimental drawings, and you can see them there on the table, not framed, not mounted. I'm okay with that. They are just experimental pieces, and actually the Dodge was rather sweet because they've just had a dark room opening.
That lack of framing and slight curling to the paper, all those things they give a lovely organic feel.
Yes,
You know,
yeah.
already present in the image. No, well, I think it works really well. They wouldn't be like confined.
No, and also I like all the textures on the back wall there. It's quite a quite interesting sort of reflection. So these are lumen prints, and I knew that. Oh yeah, so the reason why I did lumen prints was because I wanted to try and draw the mountains as though it was at night time. So I knew I needed a black background, you know, dark background, and white or grey kind of mark making. So in order to do that, I had to kind of play with painting with the fix, and then flashing the work under the enlarger, and then refixing it. So in fact, Rhiannon, you remember we did this at Avada, wasn't it?
We did, yeah, thank you Avada for that.
Yeah, yeah, so that was a skill that we learned one evening at Avada in the upstairs workshop room. So I used that for these very experimental kind of quick drawings. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm sort of vaguely a foot in photography, but really just wanting to see what happens with mark making, because it's such an immediate, demanding kind of process.
That combination of photographic materials, if you like, but using drawing is fascinating. The way that it's working there.
And that's something we both share, isn't it?
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's right. And I did a series of 3 of them, and the idea being was that with storytelling, the story's always sort of the same but slightly different. So there's actually 3 images of the mountain, and they're all slightly different, but essentially from a sketch that I did at the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah, those natural variations that come through a retelling.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Lovely. Would you like, what's your next slide?
The next slide, let's have a look.
We'll bring whether to carry on.
Welsh, I think, a bit more Welsh.
Okay.
Oh, no, there's a close-up.
Close-up.
That's one of the drawings.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely textures. I love the little bits at the top where it's all sort of slightly...
Yeah, it almost looks like snow, and it's...
Yeah, great.
Oh, here they are. Right. Okay. So this still starting from the top left, going across and then down and across, down and across until you end up with the sky at the bottom. Yeah. So this was the original response to CAD at Address. Yeah. So we were going to talk about why much of my landscape work has origins in Wales. I did my MA there in 2000. Yeah. And there's something about the language. One of my favourite words in Welsh is mynyddoedd, which is mountains. It has a lovely kind of wavy sort of, you can almost imagine the skyline when you say that. It has that kind of up-down feeling.
Yeah, that feeling of climbing.
Yeah, or almost distance or something.
And that's interesting, because the way that you've arranged these stills, apart from the content of the stills, the arrangement of them is
This was shown at Avada, actually. There was a film festival quite a few years ago, and it's only about 2 minutes long, but it's quite hard to watch. Basically, what I was trying to do was tackle the subject of the sublime, which you could sort of say is the opposite to the picturesque. So from the picturesque being a very comfortable, crumbly cottage, pleasing kind of feeling and picture, the sublime is something more erratic and difficult and
hard to pin down,
gritty, and kind of almost otherworldly, I guess. Almost imminent death or something.
That's what I think about. Well, I suppose it was supposed to be a closeness to God in nature, wasn't it? It was God in nature rather than a God being. Yes, very elemental. And those elements come through really strongly in those. Those
could be kind of close to God or spiritual.
Yeah.
So I went to do a residency in Wales at the Dark Room, the place you've just seen at Studio Mellow. It's a great place. And I had a kite, a fairly large kite, and I attached a cheap version of a GoPro to it, and got it launched at the foot of the mountain by the lake there. And it was incredibly windy, and it was almost blood, sweat and tears holding on to the kite string. And
you can feel that in that second image on the left. You can feel the fact that at any moment the kite might fly off completely and either lift you off or just break away.
It was really, really hard going. It was amazing though. It was probably one of the loveliest, most amazing things I've ever done. So the kite gets launched, and then the wind was so strong that the pictures, as you can see, were actually in waves. So I wouldn't even know that was possible until I got it back later. And it also landed in a bog, so it got submerged in water, and it did launch a few more times, and then it kind of stopped working. But that was all kind of part of it, and the wind was part of the sound effects. And at the end the sound cut out because it stopped working, and you just get a lovely shot at the bottom of the bird. I think it was a seagull in the sky, and the clouds. So again, that kind of upward slope. So I mean, the sublime is a really hard thing to kind of take on, because traditionally the sublime in art tends to be 19th century, huge canvases, massive of Dynastics or Scotland maybe. And then the contemporary kind of version of that now, if you Google it, tends to be quite safe drone footage of flying over mountains, still very in control.
Actually, do you know, this is something we've never talked about, so this is completely off piece, but do you know a pastel painter called David Blackburn? He's no longer with us.
No.
He's from Yorkshire, and when we next meet, Wig, then I will show you some books I've got of his, because he tackles the sublime.
Okay.
Using aerial shots, pastel. There's sort of abstract, semi-abstract pastel paintings, but they're from above, and that it just reminded me now, and he talks an awful lot about his interaction with the sublime and sublime painting. That's
good. I've just seen the time. We better move on. What else have I got?
So where would you like to go? Because do you want to talk a little bit about your community work? Would that be something you'd like to talk about?
I can do.
Or the other thing that we were going to talk about is that really fascinated me was when you've got a particular piece on the blog which has got text in it, and it says, "She asked, why don't you take photographs of the views?" And I was really interested in that piece. I don't know if you've got it in your PowerPoint.
All I've got is I'd have to come off and try and get the MP3 to play, which is a shame, because actually that says a lot about me and my work for that one.
And that was really about the use of text and about that question, why don't you just take a photograph of it? Maybe you've already answered that, really, in saying that, if you just take a photograph of something, just a standard photograph, then it just doesn't
rarely conveys. It rarely conveys any attachment.
I think you've answered that.
I think I'm always trying to set a bit of a challenge to myself with parameters, distances travelled, or technique. And I mean, the thing is, basically, people laugh at me because I have a very, very old-fashioned phone. Actually, I've gone and lost it now. But I don't even really have a smartphone that will take photographs, because although there are times when I really need them, and for work I use them. I know Anita's here, so I use my iPad, which is a bit of a hassle to carry around, but I'll have that on me if I know I've got to take a photograph. But just taking snaps with a smartphone for me isn't enough. I do it with my iPad, but I know when I get back home, they're never really the same as, for example, this drawing, where I've really looked at each tuft of grass, or considered how I'm going to fit, these tin mine kind of landscapes into that space. There's nothing like, to me, there's nothing like drawing to really engage with what you're doing, or failing that, spending maybe 15 minutes, half an hour walking around a site and thinking about where you might take that one precious pinhole photograph from.
And I suppose you could say, you know, in the tradition of walking as drawing, you know, making that circuit, choosing your place is almost like a physical embodied sketch before you take your photograph.
Yeah, yeah. So I've always taken photos and then done sort of pinholes. This one's weird for me because I'm actually working in colour, and I'm really kind of trying to learn colour because I didn't do it. We didn't do colour when I was a student. Everything was black and white and conceptual.
Working through colour theory. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying just looking at a landscape. I know this is quite picturesque, but it's interesting just to look at a landscape and think, what colour is that?
Yeah.
What would I call that? What does it remind me of? If I could match that colour at home, what would it be? I mean, that was all done on the beach, but so these mainly been done during the COVID period.
Yeah.
So I've always been drawing.
For me, it's really nice to see your drawings because I just don't often see your drawings.
To be honest, Rhiannon, I only photographed these this morning for my sketchbooks. It's really nice to see the good stuff in the sequence, because obviously in the sketchbook there are lots that go wrong, and you know, you get to shuffle past those. But
it's nice. It is nice though, isn't it? The value of a sketchbook, and I think maybe that's something else. That that during lockdown we've had this thing about, you know, repeated doing day after day, and the sketchbook really lends itself. It's got that sort of diary quality.
Yeah, it does. And but unfortunately, I think the downside is that things stay in the sketchbook and they never become another development or another piece. I'm really good at making things, but never quite finishing them or never quite resolving them. I mean, I do, but I'm really enjoying just sketching and playing at the moment. And I know you're going to ask me what my next exhibition is, but there isn't one. I'm just, I'm just
this wonderful image before we have to finish. I'm not quite sure of the time actually because I've lost my.
We're on 46 minutes. So
we have to stop for questions soon, haven't we?
Yeah, very quickly. This is another 5x4 inch pinhole. It's actually quite a perfect looking one in the sense that you can't see the framing around the edge. There is some framing around the edge, but no kind of panelling. That was shot in Wales, and it's actually through an aperture of a cave hole, but it was actually man-made, blown up to show that view. So in Wales, they dynamited through a mountain to create that view. The camera was in almost pitch black, but just capturing that waterfall.
So can I just ask a technical question about this?
Yeah.
If you were doing this with a pinhole, would you use several different exposures, and then when you go home you look at the one that's worked the best, or you just say, oh, I'm going to give it, you know, however long? With all your experience of pinhole, you know, how do you you presumably knew you wanted to take this particular image before you went?
Yes, I was very planned.
Right. So you'd be thinking about the diameter of the pinhole and then and the exposure time and so on and so forth before you even went.
Yeah, so I knew this was going to be quite a long exposure. I took 2 shots, 2 negatives. With dark slides, so you pull one out and then put that away and then pull another one out and do that. So I think there was 2 exposures. One was maybe 6 minutes and the other one was 8.5. So from those 2, identical viewpoint, just one was longer than the other.
Yeah.
So from here you can really see the mist on the waterfall. You can see that's a long exposure. So I'm not quite sure where that one came into. I'll just so. Oh, I don't know if you can you see the pigeon's head? It looks a bit off. You can. So we had a bit of a laugh talking about this one, didn't we? Because we were talking about the birds. So maybe if should we end on this one?
Yeah.
Is that all right, Rhiannon?
Yeah, we can end whenever you like, and then we can ask questions. We've got plenty.
I'm conscious of time because for people that might have other plans. So this was this piece of work came through during lockdown. I was not massively ill, but I was pretty ill right at the beginning of lockdown in March 2020, and lying in bed, just lying in bed, not feeling, my chest was not good, and I was listening to the bird song, and then the bird song went a bit strange,
You
It is meant to be quite a funny piece, so I hope no one finds it too
hallucination.
offensive. Hey?
You said it was almost like an auditory hallucination.
It was, because I could hear the wood pigeon outside, and instead of saying, which it should say in the book, or if you go online, you can identify birds by what they say they might be saying. So a great tit, for example, is supposed to say teacher, 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 and it's to help you learn that bird. So a wood pigeon is supposed to say, take two, you, take two, you, and then it cuts off, because the bird doesn't always do the complete phrase, song. But it went to, it's Corona, don't you know? It's Corona, don't you know? It's, and then it would cut off. And sometimes when I think about this piece of work, I can still hear it now, but not as vividly as when I was lying in bed with the window open. And then the other one I didn't know, but there was a squeaky bird going, breathe, breathe, like that. And I found out through some research, it's a blackbird whose nest is possibly being robbed.
Right.
And it's like a danger alarm call.
Yeah,
And so being quite common birds, I would hear this quite a lot. So when I was better, this was my response to COVID. I wanted to, it's a completely different direction. I wanted to do something different. And the birds are taken, the pictures are derived from my grand's book that she gave me. So there was a nice connection there between
that origin
of birds and you know, what they look like. I thought I'd put the Latin on there, but I obviously decided not to. So it was quite an informal piece, and as you can see by the kind of the handwritten element.
Yeah. I don't think we've got time. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about text in your work, but we probably haven't really got time now. We'd better move to questions, haven't we? If Lisa's
yes,
to open it up.
Yeah. Shall I come off this?
Questions. Yes, you could do.
Try. Yeah. Oh, it's escape, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to listen into your conversation and to get some more to hear more about all the brilliant things you posted on your blog and on the Instagram page. So we do have a little bit of time now. If anyone has any questions, you're really welcome to either type them in the chat and Rhiannon can ask them, or feel very welcome to pop your microphone on and ask. Does anyone have any questions?
I was wondering if I could ask whether you ever experimented with using sort of natural materials to make your chemicals. Well, plants, obviously,
yes,
because it would seem to fit a little bit with your theme,
yes,
and also would increase the the uncertainty, I suppose, the lack of control that you.
Yeah, that's right. I have actually been given a book on amphitypes from my partner, and I'm very aware that there are certain plant dyes that can be used. I think beetroot has got to be a good one. I know there's certain ones you can use. I've had to go with John Bly, who's from Avada. I think he is, isn't he? He's an associate. Looking at using plant-based developer and fixatives, which is another thing you can do. You don't have to buy shop-bought chemicals, and obviously a bit better for the environment. So things are definitely heading in that direction. I have thought about doing workshops with children using amphitypes. So yeah, it is one of those things on the list somewhere in the chaos, as you can see. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I've used plant-based developers myself. They're quite easy. Plant-based fixers, I think, are harder, or non-chemical fixers. I understand.
Oh no, heavens! What was it? What did he use?
Salt, I think.
I think it was the soda crystals or something. I can't remember what he used. Soda crystals was part of it for the fix. Sure it was. I think we did some work with just fixatives and soda crystals. Oh, and vitamin C. So kind of better than, you know, Ilford fix.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, I was very interested in winter because it was so evocative of a very bleak winter, and you pointed out how the hedgerow wasn't really cared for and so on. But I wondered if you could just tell us a bit more how you felt you were responding or dialoguing with Tunnicliffe's work.
Oh, okay. So one of the dilemmas with Tunnicliffe's work was that when he does his images of, say, spring, if you have ever seen, actually, no, you won't be able to go and see if you can find one of the books. I know exactly where they are. What you'll find with the Tunnicliffe, What to Look For in Spring, or one of the season books, is that there's so much in those pictures, and it's full of wildlife and fungi and the farmer in the background mowing the hay or whatever, that it was a real dilemma, because you know that the chances of all that coming together in a photograph are really impossible. So although I haven't shown you the other ones, for summer, for example, no, for autumn, for example, I've shot from the allotment. Oh, here we go. What to look for in autumn. Yeah, in fact, it might even still be marked. Yeah, so for autumn, for example, I use that picture there, and on autumn morning, and it was a picture of berries in a very sparse hedge on the edge of the allotment, and then I photographed the moon on the same day with a longer lens. This is digital. And then I imposed the moon, so it was coming through the fence as though it was very low down. But you could see the lines. It was like a bad patch. It was a bad clone kind of onto the picture, because I wanted you to see the impossibility of necessarily bringing all those things together. So the winter one was much more stark and empty compared to the one I did for autumn, which did tend to have quite a lot of those things within it. There was like a in the hedge where it looked like a badger. There was like a badger entry into the allotment, where there was a hole through the grasses.
Does that
Yeah,
help?
thank you.
All right.
Yeah, give me quite a bit to think about. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, Anita, I don't know who you are, and I can't see.
Anita is one of my lovely students.
Right, hello. And you were on mute, but you're not now. So would you like to ask a question? Not sure. Maybe she can't.
Do I need to unmute Anita?
No, she's on the mute.
Oh, she's here.
She's there.
Sorry. It was really wonderful to see all the variety of art you've been doing, and the extent you go to express your artistic style.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I caught you late, but what I did say was, "Oh, that's really nice. So many different things you can do. So many options."
Thank you. So Anita did some online. We did kind of online mindful nature kind of work over lockdown, because I couldn't come out to teach you. So you were brilliant and keeping going, and we did some shell drawings, didn't we? And
yeah, we did all kinds of things. Yeah, I mentioned yesterday that I really enjoyed painting or drawing the mussels using the ink and the bleach.
Yeah.
And it's just nice for me to see some element of science in art and what you could do.
It can
really
be.
beautiful.
Yeah. So where did you join us from, Anita? When did you get in, as it were?
Oh, about 2:05.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so there might be an opportunity maybe when you.
I see you next. We'll have to try and grab a few minutes before.
So of course, Anita can watch the recording on the Avada blog. So when this is.
Oh yeah, of course we're being recorded, aren't we? You do know we're being recorded.
Yeah.
So Anita will be able to watch it all there, and also just to say, of course, your community work, your community practice is really important to you. So Anita's.
It's one of my people.
Which is
So
great.
the other thing I do, my main job is to do Saturday clubs for children, but also to work around the community in Oxfordshire, to work in community centres and bring the arts and the crafts to people that might find it hard to going into college. So I have lovely groups of students who I always encourage to push a little further, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, and you know, each lesson is a bit different.
Also because she brings things, she brings things to us we would never ever do, and you just explore another side of you, which then helps you with other things.
Yeah,
so
and
it's not just a one-dimensional thing.
Yeah, it's a two-way process. So I learn from what you're doing, and often we explore processes together.
Yeah.
So there are many things, like materials and things I buy, that we kind of explore together, really, because you know we do a lot of different things.
So. Very collaborative practice.
Yeah,
and it's very encouraging to see people having a go when they normally wouldn't, and they've actually pushing themselves and smiling at the end of it. It's really nice to see what they produce, and we can support each other, which I think that's what it's about.
And it was massively, especially during lockdown, because for those who could manage to access the internet and get the Zoom going, it meant that we stayed in touch. Oh, it was just brilliant, really. Yeah, it's really good.
So you're our art catalyst. You make things happen, make changes.
Yay! Power of art. Maybe we should leave it at that, unless there's another.
Well, I think
positive end.
Well, I think it's been really nice because we've seen all aspects really of your practice today.
Apart from that film, what a shame, my Penarth film. But I mean, maybe I can get Lisa to. I'm not very up on the Instagram, again, because you know, to me a digital snap is difficult, but I'm quite happy to post the Penarth video if people want to see it as part of it.
If Lisa can't help you, I can probably help you to put that on the Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Link it on your blog post as well, Wig.
Yeah, and to be honest, I really need to do a proper associate page as well. I've just been so busy that I somehow added on.
Oh, well, thank you so much again for making time for us in your busy schedule, and letting us listen to
I've enjoyed it.
Your chat. Yeah, really, really brilliant. I always love kind of, especially because part of the OAFA feature is that the featured artist chooses the next one, so it makes these conversations really rich, especially if you know a little bit about each other's practice already. So it's lovely. It's a pleasure listening in.
Thank you, and thank you to Rhiannon for your lovely questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely, some really insightful questions, and thank you to our guests as well for asking questions too.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that brings us to a close now. But Wig is going to be still featured until the end of the month. So you can obviously access the blog in the link I've popped in the chat, and the recording of this will also go into that as well, in case you want to listen back or share it with other people who are interested. You can also catch her last posts on our Instagram residency as well, before we hand over to the next featured artist, who I believe is here with us today.
It's Karima. Yay!
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and watch this space for the next OAFA and associated events as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Right. Bye, everyone. Bye.